Okay, in this video, we are going to be talking about function notation. You want to make sure to be taking notes in your note. Okay, so what is function notation? Well, a function can be thought of as a machine. Where each input leads to only one specific output. Okay, so the key here is to be noticing, obviously, is each input one output. So you've already looked at function notation a lot, but now we're just going to break it down a little bit more. So function notation looks like our f of x equals, for example, 3x plus 4. So we've already talked about f of x is another way to write y. But f, that first letter, can give me the name of the function. X, or what's inside my parentheses, is my input. This is what should be plugged in into my equation. Okay, so this is the new piece that we are looking at. We haven't looked at a number inside these parentheses before. So far, we've just seen x there. Okay, so let me also say specifically that this f out here can be any letter. You might see G, you might see P. As long as you don't see what's inside the parentheses, then it can be any letter. Just like we don't always have Y equals. Sometimes we have C equals or F equals or T equals. So it just depends. This F can always change as long as it doesn't match with what's inside my parentheses. So let's talk a little bit more about this function piece. So f of x is the output. Sorry, it should be together, of our equation. And we do say f of x. And 3x plus 4, or what is over here, which looks like mx plus b, this is my rule used by the function machine. Okay, so let's look at our function machine. I'm going to draw two function machines below, but before we do, we're going to talk about the purpose of our function machine and what it can help us look at. So let's say I want to find and illustrate f of 2 and f of negative 1 for my function of of 3x plus 4. Okay, so I want to know what f of 2 is, the function of 2, and the function of negative 1. And we're going to use our function machine to help us see that. Okay, so drawing our function machine. Doesn't have to be pretty. Inside, I'm going to place my input, my x value. So we already talked about that. Whatever is inside the parentheses is what I'm inputting into my function. And my actual function is 3x plus 4. So if I input 2 into my function, I'm going to plug 2 into 3x plus 4, and then I'm going to get an output, and that output's going to be 10. Because 3 times 2 plus 4 is 10. So I can also say that f of 2 equals 10. Okay, I can do another one, and I'm going to switch colors. So if you have another color, that'd be great. If not, you could draw another function machine or do something to mark that it's a second one. So say I input instead negative 1. If I input negative 1 into my function, so I'm here, f of negative 1, plugging x into my equation. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 plus 4, and my output would be 1. So f of negative 1 equals 1. Okay, so we're going to look at some examples without our function machine. Okay, so looking at a couple of the other examples, say I have f of x equals 2x minus 5. And I want to know what is f of 3. Okay, so what's inside the parentheses is telling you what I'm going to plug into my rule. So think of your function machine. This would be my input. And I'm looking for my output, which is all of f of x, or we know that can stand for y. So I'm going to plug in my 3 into my equation. So 2 times 3 minus 5. That's 6 minus 5, which equals 1. So I can say that when I have an input of 3, f of 3 is going to equal 1. Okay, looking at one more example. G of x equals 25x plus 8. What is g of negative 3? Okay, plugging in, I'm going to have 25 times negative 3 plus 8. So I plugged my negative 3 into my x value in my function. This will give me g of negative 3. 25 times negative 3 is negative 75 plus 8. Negative 75 plus 8 is going to give me negative 67. So g of negative 3 equals negative 67. Okay, so let's conclude our video. So hopefully what you have seen is that function notation is just a way to note what your input is for your equation, and we take that input and we plug it in. So just, I think the common mistakes that we have to wrap things up is don't make the mistake of thinking that f of -3 means that this is y. This does not mean that y equals -3. It means that x is -3. So it wants to know what is y, or what is the output when the input is -3. Okay, so your job is to complete the homework assignment that you picked up in class after you finish this, and that will be taken as a grade. So be sure to complete that to the best of your ability.